Hey guys, Thomas Asula Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Annihilation. So as you can see, this movie did come out in February, so I'm a little bit late to this review, but that's just how it is. So, before I get started, it says that this is from the director who made Ex Machina. That is a movie I have not seen yet. But I heard the effect. The only thing I heard about that movie is that the effects were good. So I don't know if that movie was good or not. But whatever. I'm here to talk about Annihilation. And after the whole biology thing of the fish monster and the movie that I had said had a terrible ending to it, that being geez. Now the movie's name is escaping my mind. Something about water, but anyway, so this movie features Natalie Portman and a team of other female scientists, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So we follow Natalie Portman, who plays Lena. Uh, so we start this movie off with her just being asked questions by this, what appears to be this other scientist person. Then we see a meteor fall from the sky and hit a lighthouse. So after that, quick cut, we see that Lena is this professor who teaches at a school. She has a little talk with another professor named Dan, and she talks about how she lost her husband, and or maybe she was referring to her son at this point, but no, it was her. I think it was her husband. But then, as this music's playing and as she's home relaxing, her husband returns. Her husband is named Kane, and he doesn't seem to know what has happened to him or how long he's been away. He claims that he's been away for like 12 months, even though I think the time span was either longer or shorter, based on the events. By the way, this is a spoiler review. I haven't necessarily spoiled parts of this movie quite yet, but anyway. So Kane is getting blood, like it's spewing out of him, so he goes to the hospital. But their hospital truck is quickly pulled up by some sort of police force. She's then, when Lena is showing concern, she's then drugged or needled by someone and brought to an area that is only called Area X. We are then introduced to Dr. Ventress. So she's trying to calm Lena down and explaining what the situation is. So she brings her outside where they see this, what I'll describe as a luminescent light, or a light that reflects a bunch of colors off of it, and that seems to be a wall of some sort. They refer to it in the movie as a shimmer, and we see that Dr. Ventress is talking about it. So we learn that Kane ventured forth into this place at one point and had made it back. So we see a flashback of her talking with Kane and so on and so forth. It's a little bit of a just so calm before the storm sort of moment. So she meets the rest of the team. I believe she's introduced to Anya, Josie, and that's 4. And then there was one other one that I'll have in my notes later on, because she kind of comes in or her character kind of introduces herself a little later on. Anyway, so anyways, this team of 5 ladies ends up going into what they refer to as the shimmer. So we have this really quick scene while she's like sleeping of her uh, having essentially sex with. And at first, I couldn't quite tell who it was, but later on, we see that it's Dan, the guy we saw at the beginning of the movie. So anyway, so they're out and about, and they see that, or they say that they've been now out for 3 or 4 days, even though what we see on screen seems to appear to be one day. But they don't really make too much of a fuss about it as they move forward. So, they reach this water area and a small little hut. And one of the team members, I believe they refer to each other by their last names. I believe her name is Radek. She gets pulled in by something, and we don't know what it is at first, initially. But the team does manage to pull her out to see what appears to be, at first, a normal alligator. And the rest of them go out and shoot it, and Lena, being a former military, trained person, is capable of aiming her gun well enough to put the alligator down. So we then they check out the alligator quickly, and they see that it has been mutated from something else. They claim that is from a shark, and they are also showing the environment is also showing changes in its environment, like the environment's actually shifting or whatever. So, the group we huddle. No one has quite, there was that little quick fight, and then they head toward Fort Amania. And there is a tape left for them. And then while they're traveling there, we learn more about the character Shepard, who is this, like, taller blonde woman with a ponytail. Anyway, we see that there's another flashback that happens with Kane leaving, and then Lena wakes up and is checking around. We see something come, and then we see that it's a bear attacking Shepard and getting pulled away. But it's late, and when it's the next day, Ventress wants to keep going. But Lena does say that she wants to look for Shepard alone, so she does. She goes venturing out on her own, and she sees these super skinny white deer with, like, plants growing out of their antlers. Then we see her see the body and return to the group to inform her that yes, Shepard has been killed. So they come across this more open area where they see that there are, like, tree-like forms, but they're more human-shaped in actual form. So there are a bunch of plants, but they seem to be a more, again, human form, or shape, I should say. So they check in one of the houses, and while it's late at night, Lena checks her own DNA to see that this sort of shimmer that they keep referring to, the instance of how it spreads, is now inside of her. So she has another flashback with Dan, and this one is more referring to the actual, them talking about the affair that they are having with, what she's having with Kane, and Dan also has a partner, so they're both, seeking out something else. But that quickly gets cut out as Lena is hit with the butt of a gun, and kind of forgot which one it was that was going. That had the butt of the gun, and she only had like her. Yeah. Anyway. So she's like questioning them because she found out the info about how Lena and Kane were in a relationship, and Kane's the one that came back. So they're all three of them are actually tied up. So I guess she must have hit all the other three that are remaining. That being so it's Ventress and one of the other ladies. I forgot the other two ladies. I know their names were Josie, but I don't remember the fifth one. I'm sorry. And she was quite remembered too. I just didn't write her name in the notes because, like, anyway, that's my bad. So anyway, they see or they hear, excuse me, they hear this voice, and it sounds like Shepard, even though they know she died. So the one that tied them up goes to quickly check it out. But it seems to be, as soon as she walks out, this creature that is seems or appears different than the wolf, or I mean the bear. It looks more like a bigger wolf-like creature with bear features and other features as well. So anyways, sorry to refer to her as this, but the one that tied them up ends up being ripped to shreds. And then the creature gets shot down dead. And Ventress heads out. She's like, I'm done with this. I'm just gonna go. And meanwhile, Lena joins Josie. She was talking about how... And she starts talking about how she wants something different from the rest of the group. We learned these details earlier from Shepard, so it comes full circle here, where she walks off, and we don't really see what happens to her, but it is to be assumed that she turns into one of those tree-like shapes. But, you know, because we see that as she's walking toward or away from Lena, like the scars that she gave herself before this mission are what's coming out of them appear to be plants and vines and such. So there's that. So then we are heading up toward the lighthouse, because that was their entire mission, to head toward that lighthouse from the beginning where we saw the meteor fall into the lighthouse. So we get another, I think it was the final flashback with Kane just saying, hey, and Lena just saying, hey. That was probably the most unnecessary one out of the flashbacks. Probably could have cut that out, save a little bit of time, like a few minutes, or a minute, I don't know how long that was. Anyway, Lena gets to the lighthouse, and there are several skulls outside, but she goes inside anyway and sees that there's this camera there as well, and it's faced toward this dead body. So she looks at what's on the footage, and she sees that Kane is talking and rambling on about if he's himself or if this other person is him, and so on and so forth. And she sees that Kane pulled out a grenade and killed himself, only to then see that it was also Kane, the one recording it. So there was this weird, baffling moment of two Kanes being there, and it just being like this whole weird thing. So there is this hole in the lighthouse, so she goes inside. There she finds Ventress. Ventress then says the name of the movie, and then a light show beams out of her mouth. It's a little bit silly. I thought that part was a little bit too silly for even this movie, but I think it redeems itself slightly afterwards, as this cloud, the only way I can describe it is this cloud-like structure that has a light inside of it forming. So Lena is now staring at this thing, completely enamored by it, and some of her blood goes into this cloud-like form. Uh, then this body that has now tentacles comes out of it. The cloud form turns into that, and she's like trying to shoot at it first, and then she's trying to run from it. She manages to get back to on top of the hole, only to see the creature is somehow there now, like it teleported. That was a bit too vague for me to understand. Like maybe it traveled faster than her somehow, but it didn't really show it. Anyway, she gets hit by the creature again, and she starts to see that this creature that has her form, is like mimicking her movements. So she tries to run for the door, then she gets crushed against the door and falls down. So she looks back to the form, and she slowly makes her way toward one of the sides where she sees this grenade. She hands the grenade to the form that's like her, and the form just looks at the grenade and then back at her while she just runs, books it. The creature tries to slowly make its way toward her, but she manages to get outside, and the grenade goes off, causing it to catch on fire. The fire spreads as the creature goes toward the hole into the center of where this all started. So the fire spreads not only to the lighthouse, but to all the things that were affected by the shimmer, that being all the trees outside or whatever. So she finally returns to Cade, and she says, "You're not the real Cade," and he's like, "I guess not," or I don't know, or something of that nature. But she doesn't really seem to be too all that bothered by that. So they end up hugging, and we see that shimmer reflection now appears on both of their eyes, and that is the end of Annihilation. I thought the pacing was pretty solid throughout. I thought the acting on Ventress started out a little bit shaky to me at first. Like it was very stoic and sort of generic, but there were parts as the movie went on where she started to feel like she kind of just started to figure out who her character was and started to open up. So I think her character definitely gets better as the movie goes on. Natalie Portman does a pretty good job here as well. And these creatures definitely have a pretty interesting design. They get more interesting. So we have like at least three creatures that are fought off in this movie, and they're pretty well placed apart as well. And I think I just remember the name of the movie now. Wow. The Shape of Water, as I mentioned earlier, because that was the last movie I had on my mind when I thought of reviewing this movie, only because there's this bit about biology in both of them. That's the only reason why I connected the two. But, The Shape of Water's explanation just happens out of nowhere. And in this, at the very least, like, the premise of this movie is that they are scientists, they understand the biology, they understand how things work, so they're able to explain to us as the audience what is happening, even though they are, or at least Lena, or Natalie Portman's character Lena, is always saying, "Oh, that's impossible," or "That shouldn't be how this works because of this and this and this," but they keep on seeing these things. So I think that's a better way of handling the altercation of biology, if that makes any sense. And, you know, because that's essentially kind of what this movie boils down to, is the changing of biology, right? Because when they enter the Shimmer, and we see that camera footage of the first team with Cade, we see that one of the characters that was with them, they cut his stomach open. I didn't mention this part because I forgot where exactly they see the footage. I think it's when they enter the fort. But they see that his insides are like moving, and it's like, oh. So we visually see that there's something happening before we get to the sort of the crux or the final part of the movie. That parts that build up to that final reveal of her and Cade having this shimmer effect in their eyes. So that, to me, when it's built up in this way, makes more sense to me. It's more fulfilling in that way. So yeah, the pacing was pretty good. The acting, as I said, overall, besides the beginning of Ventress's character, was pretty solid. The creatures were pretty interesting more and more as they went on. I think the most interesting creature was that wolf bear like creature that had Shepard's voice. I think that one's the one that stood out the most. That one's the one that created the most tension in the movie as it sort of walked toward the ladies that were tied up at the time. So it definitely created a pretty interesting scene as, you know, it was calling out with Shepard's voice. So pretty interesting movie. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It does kind of make me want to go back and check out Ex Machina, even though I'm not probably going to review that, but at this point. But still, I think I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. I think this does go a slightly above average film. I definitely enjoyed it. So definitely go check it out if you haven't already. Probably, you know, based on the time this review is coming out, it's already done its dues. But anyways, if you did enjoy this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out the link in the description. It will head you over to my Patreon page, and any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye!